Can we resume our seats so that we can get started with this session? Let's resume our seats. I know there are lots of exciting issues to discuss, but we have to move on with the next session as well. I hope you had a good break, and then we can now continue with the next session. So we are on session 3 now, and what we want to do is to move on, and I will want to invite the chair of the session, Dr. Rose Ngugi, who is the Executive Director of KIPRA, to run this session for us. I would want to invite her up front so that she can then take us through this program. Yeah, welcome.
So good afternoon. It's just a few minutes after midday, and we are talking about foods, so I hope that you've gotten something nutritious. We were not given a formula when we go for tea, how to combine everything, but I hope you managed to combine something. So at the moment, we are going to look at matters to do with enhancing employment opportunities for the youth. How many are youths by age? Real age of youth. Thank you. Constitution is 34 and below. Thank you. Why I've asked that is because sometimes when I do multilateral issues, I say, why do you want to discuss Africa, yet Africa is not on the table? So we are going to discuss about the youth, and I hope we are going to be very genuine about the youth, because actually there are very few in the room, but they should also understand that we were once youth, and youth is just it's an age period, yeah, and which we transition later. So in this session we shall have 3 presentations. The first one will be through video. The second one will be virtual, and the third one will be physical. And then we shall have panelists. 2 of them we've already confirmed. We are still waiting for confirmation of the third one. So without much ado, I would like to invite the first presentation. This is by Jacob Gilbert of Purdue University. It's a 15-minute presentation. I hope it is ready somewhere.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Ricker Gilbert from Purdue University.
For 15 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Ricker Gilbert from Purdue University. On behalf of my... Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Ricker Gilbert from Purdue University. On behalf of my co-author... Hello, everyone. I'm Jacob Ricker Gilbert from Purdue University. On behalf of my co-author, Janesh Shrestha, I'm happy to present our work on labor market opportunities for youth in Kenya, which is evidence from the 2020-2021 Kenya Continuous Household Survey. I've always enjoyed my trips to Kenya. Unfortunately, due to some health issues, I'm not able to be here with you. But even though I'm not there in person, I'm there with you in spirit. So let me start this work with some motivation. And we know that population growth and youth employment are major challenges in sub-Saharan Africa and in Kenya, where over 80% of the country's population is under the age of 35. So a very young population, and given declining mortality rates, which is a good thing, but But that, coupled with high fertility rates, has led to this youth bulge, with the high share of the population being very young. Currently, fertility rates have been dropping in Kenya, but since there is this bulge in youth, issues surrounding youth will remain a challenge for the next several decades in the country. And that means there's going to be increased demand for education and social services by these young people. And because these young people are going to be hungry for opportunity, there's the need to grow the economy and employ these people. And ultimately, we want these people to become a resource and an asset for the country rather than a burden. So our objective was to assess both the demand and supply of labor and employment for youth in Kenya. We used the Kenya Continuous Household Survey collected by the Bureau of Statistics in 2020 and 2021. We also focus our analysis on USAID's zone of influence counties, and you can see it on the map. There's 8 counties in western Kenya, 6 counties in northern Kenya, and 1 in southeastern Kenya, Makueni. We focused on answering the following questions that we could get at with the data. First was, what sector, either agriculture, manufacturing, or services, do Kenyans earn their livelihood, and how is this different in the zones of influence? Second, what is the current labor market participation and employment rate for youth nationally and in those zones of influence? And what are the education level of people who are employed, underemployed, and unemployed? Employed in this analysis means they worked 40 or more hours a week. Underemployed means they worked between 0 and 40 hours per week. And unemployed means that they worked 0 hours per week. We also looked at migration. So the fourth question is, where do youth and recent migrants go? Are they moving from rural areas to other rural areas, or are they going to urban areas? So the first question, or to answer from our results, is, where are people working? How is that different from the zones of influence? So the first thing is, what's the distribution of the rural and urban population? Nationally, 68% of the country was rural in 2021 and 32% was urban. The zone of influence counties were more rural, with 85% of the population living in rural areas and just 15% living in urban areas. When we look at the sectors of employment, nationally, agriculture is the major employer, employing 53% of the population. That was 67% in the zones of influence. Services nationally employed 36% of the population and just 26% in the zone of influence counties. And then industry is pretty low nationally at 11% and even lower at 7% employment in the zones of influence. Next, we looked at the labor market participation rate for people nationally and in the zones of influence. This is not just for youth, this is for everyone. When we look at true unemployment, the green bars, it's pretty low nationally at 7%. And interestingly, rural areas, it was lower than in urban areas, so very few people not working at all in rural areas. And in the zones of influence, it was lower than national. So very few people ultimately not working at all. When we look at underemployment, the blue bars, again, those are people working between 0 and 40 hours. We see that it was very prevalent nationally at 38% of people being underemployed. And it was even higher in the zones of influence. So underemployment was quite prevalent, and underemployment was also quite prevalent in rural areas, and they're correlated because the zones of influence were also very rural. In terms of full employment, people working 40 or more hours per week, it was on a national level overall pretty low. Only 55% of people were fully employed. In the urban areas, it was higher, but it was very low in the zones of influence and in rural areas as well. So this question of underemployment, because it comes up as a problem quite a lot, that people, they're working a little bit, but they can't work as much as they want, and they're underemployed, and that's a big problem. The survey asked a question, do you want to work more than you currently do? And when you look at the people who are fully employed, so these people are working at least 40 hours per week, 51% of them said, yes, we want to work more. Only 49% said no, even though we're working at least full time, we don't want to work more. But then in the second column, the highlighted figure shows that of the underemployed, 70% of them actually don't want to work more, that they want to work the same amount or less. So it's worth asking, why is that? Because it's kind of a surprising finding. So the next thing we looked at were the characteristics of those who are underemployed and said they don't want to work more, so that group of people. So the people who said, I don't want to work more, were less likely to be migrants, because you think about migrants moving for work, so those people probably do want to work more. So they weren't part of this group, or were less likely to be part of this group. Rural residents were more likely to be part of this group, as were females. People with more schooling were less likely to be part of this this group, probably because they wanted opportunities to earn more income, and older people were more likely to be part of this group. So it seems that rural residents who are older and were more likely to be women did not want to work more, even if they were unemployed. These people probably had other responsibilities around the household that prohibited them from working more, even if they had the opportunity. They didn't want to. Okay, next we're going to look at the relationship between education and employment. So you see again that unemployment rates are very low. They're actually a little bit higher for people who are more educated. For people below primary, only 3%, the green bars show, were unemployed. But for people with secondary or higher, they were a bit higher at 10 and 9%. So it could be that more educated people have a spouse who works and earns a good income, so they have some opportunities not to work. But when we look at low levels of education, people with below primary education, many of them seem to be stuck in underemployment. So people with less than primary have the highest share of people stuck in underemployment, or could be choosing to be in underemployment. The chances of formal employment and full employment are highly correlated with education. But even then, it's only 70% of the population is fully employed with a higher than secondary degree. So there are still challenges with having everybody fully employed. Next, to build on this, we looked at regression results where we wanted to see what factors were associated with being fully employed. So what we found was that if you're a female, you were actually 14 percentage points less likely to be employed than men were. So men more likely to be employed fully than women. People in urban areas were 12 percentage points more likely to be fully employed than people in rural areas. If you had a higher dependency ratio, that means you had to take care of more people in your household, you were 2 percentage points less likely to be employed. Each extra year of schooling, education, means that you're 2 percentage points more likely to be employed. That makes sense, probably earning higher income as well. If you migrated for work, not surprisingly, you were 9 percentage points more likely to be employed. If you were single, you were 2 percentage points less likely to be employed. And if you were of prime working age between 25 and 34 years, or between 35 and 54 years, you were 20 percentage points more likely to be employed than youth who are between 15 and 24 years. And I should note that people who are in school are not included in these employment numbers. People who are getting education are not part of this. Older people were equally likely as youth to be employed. Okay, when we looked at migration trends by age category and where they went, we see that youth do migrate. The migration rate for people between 15 and 24 was 9%. It's lower than the older youth of 17%, but there are people who are younger who are migrating. When we look at where they migrate, the vast majority migrate to urban areas. Across the age distribution, there's still a much higher rate of urban migration than there is rural to rural migration. The only group that has somewhat high Rural migration are older people who may be moving towards retirement, but clearly youth and working age adults who migrate are still migrating towards cities. So that's a challenge for cities to provide employment for them. So to wrap this up and conclude, true unemployment, meaning people that work 0 hours, was low in Kenya according to the KCHS in 2021, only about 7% nationally. But underemployment, the people working between 0 and 40 hours, was a larger issue. It affected 38% of the population. And only 55% of the population was fully employed, working 40 or more hours a week. The people who were fully employed were more likely to be urban. People who migrated for work had more education and were of prime working age compared to younger or older people. When we look at this issue of underemployment, youth and people with lower education were more likely to be underemployed than were more educated and older people. But we need to recognize the nuances to underemployment. This is not counting people who were in school, but 70% of underemployed people said that they did not want to work more hours, which is interesting. But it seems that when we broke this down a little further, it was people who were female, less educated, rural-based, and older. And it seems likely that those people had other things going on, other constraints to their time that reduced their ability to spend time working for wage employment. We also saw that youth migrate for work, and like most other adults, they migrate to urban areas, which raises the question of what are the opportunities in rural areas for them. So the policy implications are first that education and skills matter. For youth, there's need to invest in longer-term education and skill development, including vocational training. The study that Patrick's going to talk about in a little bit, we provided some short-term training and some opportunity to youth, rural youth in eastern Kenya, and it helped them for a while, but it didn't have much of a long-run impact. So longer-term investment in youth is key. And if we want youth to remain in rural areas rather than migrating to urban areas, there's need for development in urban areas, economic development and agricultural development. We can't forget about middle-aged and older people. If they want to work and earn income or need to do so, there needs to be opportunities for them to get skills and education as well. In terms of increasing employment and labor productivity, policies and innovations that free up women and girls' time is key. We saw females were more likely to be underemployed than males, so this is important. And those needs are likely to be different in urban and rural areas. So in rural areas, labor-saving technology that reduce the burden for women and girls are key. So things like investment in water infrastructure, boreholes, piped water, etc., that reduce the need for women and girls to carry water long distances so that they can go to school and spend their time more productively is crucial. And in urban areas, family-friendly policies like maternity and paternity leave for people who work in the formal sector are keys to increasing employment opportunities. So thank you for your time. We appreciate your questions and feedback. My email is jrickerg@purdue.edu. Please feel free to email me. We also have a policy brief on this topic if you're interested that's available as part of the conference. I hope the rest of the conference goes well. Thank you again.
From online on increasing economic prospects of youth through entrepreneurship. I assume that is Alexander. Alexander, can you hear us? He's having a representative. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I can hear you clearly. I had challenges with my audio, so I had to restart.
Okay. Are you uploading your presentation or we are uploading?
I'll be sharing my screen, but before I share my screen, thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. My name is Wilson Munene Karemi and not Professor Alexander Kahi. So apologies from Professor Alexander Kahi. He could not make it to do the presentation because he has other engagements. So I'll be doing the presentation on his behalf.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you and greetings to everyone. So I will share my screen.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Everybody
You're
can
good to
see
go.
the screen?
Yes, you're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you once again, Chair. So as I said, my name is Wilson Munene Karemi, and I'll be presenting on behalf of Professor Alexander Kahi. I'm going to share our experiences as COELIB. So COELIB is a project within Egerton University, and one of our main role is supporting business development services. So my presentation will be, and this is what I'm going to cover. So I'll first do an introduction, especially on why increase economic prospects for the youth through entrepreneurship. Then I'll look at the drivers of entrepreneurship, and in this case, I'm looking at the institutions that are supporting entrepreneurship across, and in specific, I'll be looking at COELIB. So what are these drivers that have enabled us as a project to really support youth to ensure that they are participating in economic growth of the country and also of the region. I'll also give some of the programs that we are doing to ensure we are supporting the youth in increasing economic prospects, and also give a few examples on what we're doing to support entrepreneurship across the region. And then conclude some of the conclusion, but not all of them, on what we've discovered as we support youth across Africa. So why African youth? We are talking about the youth boom versus the youth bomb. And in this case, I think from the previous presenter has indicated that we have the youngest population in the world, and we are looking at a median age of around 20 years. So this means that this population is very important to our countries and to the region. And if we are not able to harness their potential, then this means that there is a huge risk in terms of the population if they are not properly engaged. We're also looking at a very highly educated youth, yet limited opportunities for them. So this means that they have the relevant knowledge, and this knowledge can either be used for gain or for destruction. So this is something that we need to note in this case. So we also have a very youthful population and a very old leadership. So this means that there is a disconnect when it comes to priorities and perspectives, and this has been highlighted especially in some of the youth revolutions or demonstrations that have happened across Africa. And this is because of the different perspectives of the way young people are viewing things now and the way old people are viewing things. And also, I think in terms of leadership, most of these young populations are not taking part actively in leadership. So we are looking also at low financial inclusion among the youth, either because they don't have experience of either they don't have the ability. In this case, they're excluded, especially in the formal financial sector. We're also looking at a very innovative generation. So we are talking an era where we're moving from the third industrial revolution to the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI-based. And this, we're looking at a generation that has been born playing with computers and mobile phones. And that means that innovation and also technology is part of their play. So with this, it can either be positive, or if that is not harnessed, the abilities, then this means that we might having implications on this. So looking at the institution as COELIB, for us to be able to support the youth, in this case, on entrepreneurship and also in business development, what we discovered is that we need to have some guiding principles of ethos, and one of them we are looking at innovation and entrepreneurial mindset. So what this means is that in terms of the leadership, if it is an institution that is supporting entrepreneurship, the leadership needs to have that entrepreneurial mindset, and the staff needs to embody that mindset. So the staff needs to behave in a way that they are behaving like entrepreneurs, and they are also innovative in their day-to-day activities. So we are looking at also decentralization of activity, and in this case of design and decision making. And in this case, I'm talking about empowering the various levels in an institution, and that in any design or project that is supporting the youth, everybody needs to be involved in this case. Both the people who are providing the services and also the people who are going to receive the services. And this is to really encourage creativity and also ownership. We are looking at also continuous learning and adaptation. So this has been a key driver, and especially in this era where knowledge is readily available, but then you need to be cognizant of how to use that knowledge, at the right time to use that knowledge, and also when to say, to understand that knowledge, is developing at a very fast rate. So your learning and unlearning ability should be very key in terms of this. So looking at also the issue of failure as a learning tool. So this has been a very key driver in supporting entrepreneurship. And this is mainly because of the system, especially that we're used to from the education system. So what we learned in school is that failure is final. And when you fail, sometimes you don't need to wake up and, as a learning part. So as we support entrepreneurship, one of the things that we've come to learn is that failure is part of the process. And what we urge the entrepreneurs and also the staff is that when you fail, you need to go back, look at the processes, and look at where did I really go wrong, and then learn from that and move on. We also, at COELIB, entrepreneurship is taught as a behavior, not as a topic only, because what we've discovered is that as entrepreneurship being part of a mindset, it should also be taught as a behavior. And in this case, we have key competencies that need to be taught. We're looking at self-efficacy, that everybody needs to have confidence. Entrepreneurs need to have confidence and abilities to achieve their goals. We're looking at internal locus of control, a belief in themselves and also in their accountability. Intrinsic motivation, that is their personal satisfaction, and also looking beyond external rewards. Resilience is very key in this case, and also they need to embrace a growth mindset. Partnership and networking is also very key when it comes to supporting entrepreneurship. And this is mainly because you can't work alone, and building strong networks and collaboration is very important, especially in terms of leveraging our own resources and also on issues to do with mentorship, coaching, and transfer of knowledge. Commitment to diversity, we are all different. For example, in Coelib, we have around 33 staff members, and in our own, we see 33 different ways of doing things. So that has been a very important aspect in ensuring that we deliver and also we design programs that are very impactful to the youth. Human-centered design and co-creation has been center stage in designing our programs. In this case, what we emphasize is co-creation between stakeholders and us, which we've seen it work. And in this case, we are able to customize and make programs that are impactful as per the needs of the people or of the clients, in this case, the young people that we are helping or working with. In terms of increasing economic prospects, Coelib has different pillars, but today I'm going only to focus on one pillar, which is business incubation, business leadership, and market development, because then that speaks to the topic that I'm presenting now. But within Coelib, we have different pillars that guide our operations. We have information and technical assistance and consulting, research, development and commercialization, communication, media, and advocacy, and I know the team is there from this department. So in terms of business incubation, leadership, and market development, so this pillar builds on the capacities of enterprises, especially young people, institutions, and communities, to participate within the business ecosystem. So the main key activities that happen there is entrepreneurship, business leadership development, which is very key in this case because for us, we support startups. And when I mean startups, these are ideas, just ideas that have not gone to the market, but we start from supporting the development of these ideas to something tangible. And then from there, the entrepreneurs are able to develop prototypes and MVPs or minimum viable products that are able to go to the market, test them, and from there we're able to develop their businesses as per the market requirements.
Wilson, you have 5 minutes, eh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Through that, we also do business incubation, and we provide physical facilities, especially to the startups and entrepreneurs. We also facilitate access to finance. We give business advisory and mentorship and coaching, and also provide business linkages and networking to the entrepreneurs. So some of the key training programs as part of that, because as I said, knowledge is very important. So we ensure that we have different programs on entrepreneurship, leadership, and life skills, career advisory, and counseling. And somebody will ask, do entrepreneurs really need career advisory and counseling? But this is something that we've discovered is very important, especially for them to be able to grow their personally and also their initiatives. We also have different programs on agriculture and agribusiness. Gender and inclusivity is very important when it comes to entrepreneurship development, and that's why we put it at the core of our activities. So these are some of our key metrics. So in terms of experiences and some of the programs that we've supported young people across Africa, so we have the USAID Empowered Youth that supported more than 8,800 youth. Also, we are working with the Ministry of Agriculture through the African Development Bank and Africa Finance Corporation, where we are supporting around 2,000 young people in agriculture in developing their initiatives. and also working with around 49 countries across Africa through the Young African Leaders Initiative Legacy Localization Project. And one of the main activities of this program is to ensure that we harmonize leadership development across Africa. And in this case, we are supporting around 27,000 young people across 49 countries in Africa. So with those initiatives, in terms of conclusions, what we've discovered or what we've identified is that we need a need-based practical training. So entrepreneurship support should be very practical and should be tailored to real-world application. And we should also differentiate between entrepreneurship and business studies, in this case, which is very important. So we also learned that business incubation is long-term. So in our case, we usually say that business incubation takes 6 months, but we've seen companies that take up to 3-4 years by the time we finish with them, for them to go to the market and be fully independent. So incubation should be taken as a long-term activity and not just a one-time activity training or something that just takes a short time of period. So the institutions that support entrepreneurship should have the competencies in supporting entrepreneurship development, and this is very important. Not only the competence, but they should also embody the mindset of entrepreneurship. So experienced trainers and coaches are very key in this aspect to ensure that we promote entrepreneurship among the youth. And the trainers themselves need to have real-life experiences. For example, here at Coelib, for you to be part of the trainers, then you have to have a business, either successful or it has failed. We also see the importance of having experienced mentors in guiding entrepreneurs and especially the young people. So because they really understand the business environment or the business ecosystem, so it becomes very important for them to work alongside young people who do not have experience. Human-centered design or design thinking is a core element because, again, there might be a disconnect between the service provider and the client, and especially the young people. For you, in this case, then you have to understand their needs so that you're able to tailor your training according to their needs. And since we deal with different sectors, then also the different needs for the different sectors are different. So for us, we have to really look at what we are designing in terms of entrepreneurial support for youth. And also, youth are not monogamous. That means that they are different in terms of their dynamics and also their demographics. So you also need to understand that. And again, embracing failure as part of growth. So the young people, especially the ones we work with, they have to understand that failure is part of the entrepreneurial journey. And through this, especially if you're dealing with startups, then it helps them to pivot fast and be able to establish sustainable and successful businesses effectively. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Wilson, for that presentation. It gives us a clear picture that there is a place where the youth can actually go to sharpen their skill and create jobs for others. And I also like the idea that we have to embrace failure as part of growth. And there are quite a number of our youth who have actually started businesses and they get frustrated. And I think it's a high time now we let them know that there is a space which accommodates even where they have failed in the past. So at the moment, I want to welcome Patrick. Is Patrick with us? Oh, okay. So Patrick is going to give us a presentation on building the youth employment opportunities case of youth input resellers study in Eastern Kenya. Karibu sana. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity to make this presentation. And I'm just picking up from where my colleagues, the first presenter, actually put it at it. My presentation is about lessons. It's more of drawing lessons and experience from one of the works we did in the Lower Easter, noting that there is a huge unemployment on the youth. I think that is the reality. And from the first presenter, you realize there is issues of employment and underemployment. So we decided to skip that work and do a one-season trial to learn some of the experiences about the youth in agriculture. So we've entitled our presentation, Building the Youth Employment Opportunities. And we looked at the youth input reseller, and we looked at the Eastern Kenya. And we did this work with Professor Jacob Gilbert, the first presenter. And we will be drawing a lot of lessons, and this is the trend of my presentation. As you are all aware that sub-Saharan Africa really faces several challenges and the issues of economic and environment. The depressed economies are resulting from the shifting global dynamics, governance, climate change, and that will remain a bigger concern. In the last presentation, part of the conclusion was that people in the rural areas, particularly farmers, are really difficult, facing challenges reaching accessing inputs, which leads to low production, high post-harvest losses, and lost incomes. And we all know that also that every year we release over 1 million of young people into the labor market. I think those are the realities that we must live with, both from the universities and from other institutions, including those people who don't make it to the schools. They also look for that labor market. And that brings the question, how do we tap these youth so that they can be engaged into agriculture or other sectors? So we took that journey ourselves, and I thought possibly to put a small slide on the crisis of the youth. As you all know that the youth constitutes about 35% of our population. I don't know whether we internalize this. It's huge, it's serious. And some studies even show that from the first presentation, we will be discussing about unemployment, but also underemployment. And we talked about underemployment not being able to work for the hours that is required, particularly to generate a wage. Therefore, youth employment remains so critical that all the development agencies and even governments are becoming concerned with it. The recent, what they call Gen Z unrest in Kenya, is a clear reminder that we must rise up and do something. It's a reason, it is real, and that we must start shifting our thoughts in terms of how to address this emerging challenge. How do we tap these youth energies? And you remember, these are the team that have a lot of energy. They can change landscapes as based on this program. So how do we tap for development agenda such as agriculture, which is said to be the backbone and the pillar of our nation? So our journey took us to start to discuss, look at that farmers in the rural areas, farmers who have very limited access, possibly to input supplies, and we wanted to see how do we wanted to model, and that's why the data may not be conclusive, but since majority of our youths would put the first question, I have no capital. I have no capital to do business. And they are there in the village. And so we thought, how do we tap the issue to support farmers, particularly in issues of agriculture? issues of fertilizers, issue of agrochemicals, emetic bags, issues even of moisture measurement. And as a result, most of the proceeds and production in the last mile are going to waste in terms of post-harvest losses because the farmers are not accessing the inputs. Not as simple as a bag. The farmer wants to put maize into a bag, but he has to travel all the way 500 shillings to buy a bag of 200 shillings. Look at that paradox. So we said, since the youth are already based in the village, what can we do to see whether the youth can connect the farmer so that either the production, the food can be saved, the farmer can increase the income, or the same farmer can be able to store safely that harvest to the next season. So we conducted our study in 3 counties, Machakos, Makueni, and we focused on post-harvest losses because we thought, because of the time, we thought let's focus on post-harvest, things that supports farmers in the last mile. And when we talk about the last mile, I want you to draw back to your rural home, and it links very well to the border industry. If you go to the rural, it's the border that connects you and your main highway, you know, and that's where the agro dealers are. So we thought, let's see. So we selected groups. We worked with the Ministry of Agriculture at the county level to select for us groups that are already working in any agricultural related activity, meaning those who are registered groups. 40 groups, we selected 20 to be treatment group. That means we supported them, and 20 of them became the control. But basically, out of a group, we selected 10 youths, and in terms of what we wanted to do. All the youths, we tried to connect them with agro dealer, and we identified also it's them, and the groups were actually within the bracket, the real bracket of 18 and 35 years old. We encouraged female participation. The control group, we waited towards the end so that we trained, and then we surveyed and followed the groups for a period of the season, which is after the harvest. And we tried to draw some lessons and experience from that particular. Some of the things we did for the groups that were on treatment, we provided them the opportunity to give us potential agro dealers. Agro dealers are stockists. If you are buying a bag, if you are buying a fertilizer, where are you buying? So the people tell us, and I know yesterday we were told during the season of fertilizer distributors, there are many agro dealers. So we gave them also opportunity to tell us those seasonal to see whether we could get. So they gave us the list. Then we trained the youth about many things on the business, because our objective was the business. Gave them issues of modules on sales, modules of accounting, entrepreneurship, issues of gender consideration. How do you discuss with the different gender? And how do we manage post-harvest losses, because that was our focus. And how do we use some of the technologies we were initiated. Then we listen to them and say we don't have a lot of seed capital, so where we don't want to start business. And you see at the project level we can't have a lot of funding. So we decided let's discuss with the agro dealers, stockists, and as a project we offer the collateral and say, okay, I know the issue that I've already trained. I want you to give 10 bags of the emetic bags. We selected a few technologies. That was valued around 2,500 shillings. And then we gave them 2 hygrometers. Hygrometers are moisture detection devices to measure moisture. So that, and then to ensure that we have that strong commitment, we ensured that every youth that were participating contributed 500 shillings as collateral. And that 500 shillings we gave them, we linked to the agro dealer. So the project was not taking that money. Then the other challenge came. We can't move because we can't do business. So the project decided that to facilitate so that we can draw some lessons, we kept them 1,000 shillings from the project as startup so that they can take their transportation issues and also a lunch as they walk through the village, selling to the farmers within the area. We also encourage the youth to do other services beyond the sales. That was happening in the season. Value-added services, like if you go to a community and farmers were already drying their grains, you see the farmer would say, why don't the youth, can you offer yourself to do backfilling? Can you backfill and see whether we can, and ask a small fee. Can you tie a knot for that bags, say for 50 cents? We say, and we made sure that we had a lot of integrity issues, make sure that the youths were already in a sense of mannerism. And then, would you be able to transport the same proceeds, harvest from the drying field to the store? You know, we were testing part and parcel of issues within the youth. So we had two technologies that a few technologies start with, issues of inputs, and we all know that post-harvest loss starting from moisture. How to farmers store maize at the bags without the right moisture. So we provided the moisture meters, and these are very simple low-cost moisture meters that could support farmers to detect the moisture is sufficient to store, and then they have already some bags to store it. And so that's what technology, and the cost of that moisture meter was only 250 shillings. So it's so simple, comparative to commercial moisture meters. Then the second technology, which is all in the village, is storage bags, the emetic bags, bags that you can store your grains without use of chemicals. And I know this one everybody knows, because if you don't want to consume chemicals, you use a emetic bag to manage your grains safely. But unfortunately, why we brought moisture meters is because if you store grains under this bag, for example, maize, you should be 13.5% moisture content. Apparently, farmers store grains when the moisture is almost 14. It's because they don't have that moisture meter. Why? Is because the methodology of farmers testing moisture is very traditionally. I know farmers would buy it and say, "Oh, it's dry," and I'm sure all of us also do the same. Some even would test using sound, and we even took and say, so which sound would give you 13%? Which sound would give you 14? Which sound? And I think those are inaccurate, and that's why we connected them with a low-cost moisture meter. Then the additional services that we introduced to the youth were drying, participation in drying, supporting them drying using a fee, backfilling, bag dyeing, and transportation. So the key questions we were trying to track is the interventions impact on incomes and expenditure. How much are you generating as a youth? Income, do you increase your income? Could the youth intervention benefit agro dealers? Because we wanted to see how much they are able to sell. Are the farmers benefiting in terms of adopting a technology they've never used? And then what are some of the lessons and challenges faced by the youth under that business? And can this model be scaled? I think those are the things we were tracking. Unfortunately, we did for one season. So the findings of this is that on average, when we engage, the youth that participated generated about $10. That's around 1,000 shillings during the season. You say season is around 3 months of the study. It was a bit low. That's averagely, those people who went for that job. Secondly, the people who actually had different engagement, and at the maximum they could make was 7,500. That was the upper group that made good business during the season. Who was successful? The youth that had additional farm-related activities. You don't rely on that activity if you had something running, in terms you are working on a nursery, and this came to bundle on it, it became so successful. The people who are operating border and shops became very successful. I think this is because of the kind of interaction. You have learned the game of interacting with the farmers. And people also that of age, towards the last age of the youth, meaning you're close to 35. Okay. You're close to 35 were very successful. So those are some of the distribution I was saying. At the averagely, the youths that were on the top of the income were youths that could gain up to 7,000. People who had already some incomes. If you look at expenditure too, people who are already similar to income, the more you receive, the more you also spend. Supply income. The agro dealer were able to sell 11 out of 17 agro dealers were actually willing to engage the youth after the first season. I think they must have learned something. And after 3 years, after a year, 3 agro dealers wanted to continue, even after the project. They wanted to continue with that model. At the farmer level, I think the youth were able to sell several emetic bags and moisture meters. That was a real impact and contribution to agriculture. But the biggest challenge that we observed was that during the season there were a bit of drought, so we could not really figure out what could be the potential of that business. We saw some trust issues even after the project intervention. Agro dealers are not believing on the youth. I think there is already a precasted issues about the youth. You are not honest, you are not something, so trust issues became. And then the biggest one was the desire of the youth to make quick money. I think when we told 1,000 in 3 months, some of them dropped completely. So it wasn't something sustainable. The low profit margin, for a bag you could get 20 shillings. Then the youth say, no, I better be in a border. A trip could give me in less than 30 minutes, 150. So the profit margin was a big concern. The seasonality of the business also was a concern because it brought the issues. Possibly we needed to bundle with the other businesses like the production and not only focus on one particular issue. Can this be scaled? Yes. However, we need some strategic measures to bridge agro dealers and youth. We need to study the positive relationship that were developed between agro dealers and the youths. The training was something of useful. By the way, the youth said, even if I am not participating, I've learned a lot from the youth, possibly training for the future. In the future, I'll be a farmer. Then I will have learned, anticipating to be a farmer. And then we need to link with ICT. But intervention was successful to train the youth, offer opportunity for them, but create a network that could be sustainable. In conclusion, we need this intervention, possibly we needed to replicate it in a different site, so that, and in a very nice season, but we have learned that training and selling opportunity by the youth was something that possibly we could have picked. Other external factors in business comes in, which I think this is what the youth really becomes more concerned. Finally, we need policies to address the youth unemployment, making it an investment so that we can be able to expand their job opportunities. Future programs need really to incorporate the emphasis for long, broad-based solutions, rather than only looking post-harvest where we are. Asante sana.
Yeah, thanks very much, Patrick, for that presentation. Looking at how we can bring in interventions that would help the youth to be productive or to be fully employed in the agricultural sector. So it's a continuation of where the story, where we left the story with the previous presentation by Wilson. And it's very true in some situations. I think it's just, I don't know where the youth gets this quick money element that I can plant onions and I can get 3 million. There is nowhere that they say I can plant onions and get 50 shillings. They only say the millions. So I think it is a food for thought on how we can also gain trust between those who are supplying the inputs and the youth. How can we gel that trust among them? We are moving on to the next session, and that is having the panel discussion. And for the panel discussion, we have Patience Mushenga. Please welcome to the podium. We have Milu Munyanga. Karibu sana. And then we have Wilfred Olwoch, replacing Judith Wilson. Thank you very much. Patrick, you also joined the team. I don't know whether, yeah, the others are not with us, so we continue with the group of, yeah, the group that we have now. So I'll start with Professor Munyanga. And the question that I want to direct to you is with regard to, the changing population of those who are working in agriculture. Agriculture is largely currently practiced by older people, and Murithi confirmed that for us this morning, not only in Kenya, but also in most sub-Saharan Africa. Despite the high population of young people and that remain unemployed. Why are the youth slow in embracing agriculture? Why are the youth slow in embracing agriculture?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A big question. And I would think most of the speakers who came before me addressed that question, but I will just make a contribution from the top of my mind. And again, let us take this opportunity to appreciate you, because you taught me, there's a time we happened to be the same class. Okay. You standing, me seated, and teaching me math for economists. You may not be able to remember that. Sure. Great. I think, as you observed at the beginning, we talk much about the youth when the youth are not there. And I normally kind of, if I would do an analogy, would be like sometimes, and this is something that I know Kenyans will relate to it with, the nyama choma. We really love nyama choma, and we normally take out our families out for nyama choma. But most of the time, the kids are sent to bouncing castles there, and then the parents are here making decisions on what nyama choma will be eaten, whether nyama choma, mshemusho, nini. Kids are not involved in that. And whether to have kachumbari, kids are not involved in that. They are only involved when it comes to eating. And I've seen this in meetings where, like today, we are here representing the youth. We are all youth, yes, but dynamics have changed. And I also saw it during the just concluded Agra conference in Kigali, where they had this youth dome. They put the youth together in one room to kind of discuss their own problems and all that. And outside the dome, there were like some games, pool table, because the youth loved the pools and all that, cards. And even those lazy boy seats, they were relegated to that dome, yet the real issues were being discussed inside the Kigali Conference Center. So sometimes we tend to forget about the youth, and we don't even listen to them in the first place. So quickly I was going to present my thoughts about what I think are the possible pathways for the youth to get to agriculture and also non-farm employment. We've seen that even though I'm seeing varying numbers being tossed around here about the number of youth you have in the country, according to our estimation is around 62% who are below the age of 25. I know that's not the definition of youth in Kenya. Out of that number, from our own assessment, 40% of them will go to non-farm employment. And these ones will be very successful in that one. And why will they be successful? First is because actually they'll be pulled out of agriculture because most of them come from agricultural backgrounds. Yes, they will be able to render those jobs with high barrier because they will be educated, especially they will have attained post-secondary education, that education that can take them to non-farm employment. They will have invested in skills. Out of those ones who will be going to farming, some of them will be crawling into farming because they are not very prepared for that. And why is that? This is because they don't have the education we are talking about. You know, from 4 inaishia hapo. So, and they will also have struggle with getting access to land, access to finance, and basically they may even end up getting into those what I call poverty jobs. The ones you see our youth, you know, selling water there, and grammars which we don't even produce, which come from Malawi. Those poverty jobs, just low income jobs. Then out of that number I talked about, the 60% will get into farming. As I said, 10% will be pulled into farming because they will be, and they will find farming very successful. And this is why. They will have access to land. Maybe, you know, their father sent a lot of land. Access to finance. You know, they are in locations with a good infrastructure, favorable markets and all that. Then there is another group which will get to farming, which will be very ready to get into the farming. And this group will really struggle, around 50% of them. This group will be pushed to agriculture. They will be ready for it. With very few productive assets, as I said, they lack the land, finance, knowledge. Yeah, but at the end of the day, the question that we should be asking ourselves is like, is that really what we want? When we talk about the developed country like America, is everybody in agriculture? No. It's like 20-30% are producing for the rest of the populations. So that's the thing we may want to see happening in Kenya, whereby those ones who are struggling, we make them succeed in non-farm employment. And we need also to pull out a big percentage of those ones who are like in farm but struggling. So to make the non-farm very successful and the farm very successful. Very soon I'll talk about, and this is my last point, about what kind of policies do we need to put in place to make these pathways a success. And I will start with what I'm calling the green pathway, getting to this youth to getting jobs in the agricultural sector. We need to invest in research and development and institutional capacity, building to generate new knowledge, develop robust and effective extension system to facilitate access to productivity enhancing technologies. We need to improve coverage and the quality of this infrastructure, as I said, energy, roads, communication. We need to develop youth-centered program to make farming profitable for the youth. And we need to facilitate access to productivity enhancing inputs such as fertilizer, resources, resources. We need to promote mentoring the successful farmers by the youth. Then, next I move to what I'm calling the blue, the non-farm pathway. We need to invest in education skill and skill development to upgrade our skills of our youth. Most of the times, you know, we teach them on how to just be given, like, oh, there's an opportunity there, there's an opportunity there. We don't teach them to spot opportunities. They are rather generation of nyunganishia. That one is overtaken by events. We need an education system that can help them spot opportunities that jump into them. We need also to upgrade our educational curriculum. Maybe that's what we are doing in the CBC, I don't know. And invest in actionable research to address the data gaps that we have in markets and impact evaluation. And also strengthen the youth voice. This is what I decided with on decisions concerning themselves. Then the last point, what should the government do? First, we need to work on raising the agricultural productivity. We know that agriculture has more spillovers than maybe other sectors. And we also need to create opportunities along agricultural value chains, not just in the farm, but along the broad value chains in agriculture. Then we also need those policies that must anticipate rather than reacting to, what is happening. We need to be like, look ahead of times and get to see like where we are going. And then we should also need to differentiate between trying to keep youth in agriculture and giving the youth a voice. And my last note is about what we should ask ourselves as a nation. What do we really want? Do you want crops to grow our youth, or do you want our youth to grow crops? That's a decision we need to make as a nation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Prof, for that discussion regarding youth and engagement in farm and non-farm activities. I want to go to Professor Patience Nshenga, and following that conversation, of course, in the conclusion, Professor has indicated the aspect of agricultural value chains, and given that we cannot wish away agriculture, given that it's one of the core contributors for our GDP. I'm just asking myself, how can we excite the youth really to participate in this agricultural value chain?
Thank you so much. I'm going to add my voice to what all the presenters have been talking about from the time we came from tea until now. And one thing that we need to take our minds back to is last week. What happened last week? Last week, I think the government promised some youth that there were jobs in Qatar. And we saw the very long lines of the youth and the frustration that they were going through. And looking at it, we are told that in Kenya, that was in 2023, over 3 million youth between the age of 20 and 24 did not have any jobs. Now, what would excite these youth to get into the ag sector? One thing that we would wish to look at is we need to put ourselves in the minds of these youth, because what we may think as exciting may not be exciting to them. Just the other day, I was laughing with one of my colleagues because the daughter is at home. She finished her university education and she's awaiting graduation. So she got a job as an enumerator, but she studied pharmacy. So she goes there the first day, the second day, the third day, and the fourth day she comes back home and says, "Mom, I am not doing it again. I am not going." And it's like, for me and the mother, it was like, what is the problem? I mean, very many people have been doing enumeration jobs. We've seen young people doing it. So what is wrong with it? And it's like, that is not my thing. So now here, what we need to know is, what is this thing for the youth? And we talked about decent jobs. So what are these decent jobs to the youth? a job that is flexible, that is what they want, one that they can be able to get high returns over a very short period of time, that is what they want. And I know our chair there who is guiding us has talked about this youth who want maybe to go grow onions and they get millions instead of the 50 shillings. Yes, that is what they want. They want that job that will give them returns the minimum time possible. Also, a job that will give them independence of action. They are not in our generation whereby we had bosses bossing us around. They do not want to be bossed around. So those are the kind of things that we are talking about. And of course, we are talking about flexible work hours and flexi time. So in agriculture, do we have such opportunities? So as we are talking about jobs for the youth in agriculture, those are some of the things that we should be able to look at. And then something else, I know my colleague here has talked about very many things that maybe we may need to look at, and even the government would want to look at. But I would wish also to add my voice on how we can be able to make agriculture attractive to the youth. Digitization of agriculture. This is a space that the youth can be able to participate in. I know Wilson talked about AI and all that goes along with the opportunities that are there in this space. So it is a high time that we looked at digitizing agriculture and mechanization in agriculture, such that we do not just tell these youth that, okay, now you're going to agriculture. To them, it is taking that hoe that their grandmother and their grandfather used to use, their father used to use, and their mother, and now you're telling them to do the same thing. That is not what they want. So we need to mechanize and we need to digitize. We are also talking about market access. In as much as there is production, is there market access for the youth? And here, when I'm talking about market access, is linking up these youth, the ones who are producing maybe, and if they are not producing, then they can get into the marketing sector. And in them getting into the marketing sector, they can be able to aggregate, but they have to access the high-value markets. And how can they be able to do that? I think it was Felix who was here in the morning, and he told us that he is in the coffee sector. And he went to the village and found that it was the old men and women who were there as the people who were driving the coffee sector. And he has brought about a change. So can we also be able to involve the youth in these cooperatives that we have, the ag cooperatives that we have, such that they can be able to participate in that space? Something else that I would wish to talk about is the cost of doing business. We know that the youth will wish to participate in doing different things in the agricultural value chain. So if they are to participate, maybe they start an agri-enterprise. What is the cost of doing business? As we speak in Kenya today, the cost of doing business is quite high. And this is something that we have to look into, such that maybe we reduce the barriers to entry into some of these enterprises that they would wish to participate in, and also maybe look at the licensing requirements that are there, such that they can be able to do business without all these excessive taxes and also the barriers to entry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I want to go to the third question, and this will go now to Wilfred Oluoch. You've had the discussion from the two professors, and I think what they are saying, please bring the youth. Let them discuss their issues. They'll tell you what is exciting for them. I think that is what's coming up. But I'm also following up with the kind of technology that is being brought up. And I'm asking Wilfred, what skills do the youth really require for them to actually participate effectively? What are the skills gaps?
Thank you very much. So I'm glad I'm sitting in again for Judy, so I'm neither Anne nor Judy. But interestingly enough, I used to sit with both of them in the office next to each other at different times, so I've heard their stories. As I answer that one, I wanted to just say one thing first of all, which is that the way the question is being framed and the way we are discussing, one of the key things as we talk about youth is that, you know, a job is not equivalent to a career. That's the first thing. Because you had and by the way, I'm probably the only one who's not a prof here, but you had my two colleagues here talk about the mindset that we have vis-a-vis the youth, especially Madam there when you were speaking, and our training has all been about jobs, 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 jobs. When we were growing up, there was this program called Sanaa ya Kiswahili, and the song used to be Soma Upate Kazi. Yeah. And that was drilled every Thursday into our heads. And so therefore, as we answer that question, and we look at the issue of what skills they have, maybe we should take into account that there's a shortage of jobs, but there's no shortage of opportunity, which is what we need to be focusing the youth on. What are the opportunities? Jobs are declining, but opportunities are there every day. So in terms of the skills that I would say that perhaps they lack. And this is a personal experience for me because I have adult nieces and nephews, and I have 2 adult kids, and they're now trying their hand at different opportunities, so I spend my time maybe listening to what they're doing. One of the key things that has also been alluded to by the people who have spoken before on the presentation is this idea of having an entrepreneurial mindset. We have to shift the gears from when you finish school, you look for a job, to when you finish school, you look for a means of income. And that may be a job or maybe another way of generating income. So I think mentoring is important in making sure that that mindset is changed, and also the idea that failure is acceptable. I really liked what the point that was made there, that you either have to have succeeded or failed in a business. Because those of us who might be in offices and have worked there and are nearing retirement and are hoping to start a business when we retire, it usually does not work at that point. If you didn't start it earlier on, you really need a big mindset shift. The other skill that the youth seem to be lacking is soft skills. Communication seems to be a problem with the youth. If you ask a young person today to write a formal letter, you know what comes in. Some of them cannot write a formal letter. After the exam that they did, they can't actually write a formal letter where you know where to put the sending address, the receiving, and how to actually write formally. They'll write to you probably in some kind of Sheng or something close to that, or broken English. So they need those soft skills to be able to even engage with people formally. Many youth have been unable to distinguish between what is a formal communication and what is informal. Some of them, we receive them in the office, they come for attachment, and they're talking to the head of the organization, and they're talking to him as if they are talking to their friend on the street there. And so we need to train them on that understanding of that. Then there's a shortage of technical skills in the areas which are required. So we've seen the issue of agriculture. If someone's leaving Form 4, I remember when I was in school, we did agriculture as part of the examination. We grew our potatoes and our things, and we learned about things like, the different kinds of machinery that would be there. But that wasn't enough. So how do we make sure that youth have got training and they're not just focused on going into white-collar jobs and shunning all the other things that could be opportunities? I understand even there's a shortage of plumbers now in the country, good plumbers and carpenters, because our focus has been purely on you study, finish, get a job. If you don't get a job, everybody in your family is asking you, "Hujapata kazi bado?" You haven't gotten a job yet. That is the mentality that also needs to be changed. And then finally, in terms of the skills probably they would need also is to develop what Prof here mentioned, a critical view to seeing opportunities rather than just looking at jobs. And many of them that sometimes I sit with, you hear them complaining, saying Kenya is going nowhere, we want to leave the country. And you ask them, so these people who are driving these cars with new number plates, which country are they in? Yeah. And the rest of the people who are living here, are they not in the same country as you? So we need to help them be able to realize that it is you to create your own opportunity. It is not the system to fix it for you. What can you do for your country? Or what can your country do for you? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. I had a discussion recently with some youths at Egerton University. And one of the things they were saying is that anybody who is 50 years and above should just get out of job, because they are the ones who are making it difficult for them to actually get a job. And the question I asked them, so your mother will leave the job, he's the one paying for you school fees, he's the one feeding you in the house, paying for rent. So where will they get the money? And the question could not be answered at that point. Let me open the floor for 2 minutes for 1 or 2 questions. Yes, please.
Well, mine is not a question. I think I want to address what Professor mentioned. I want to reinforce what Professor said. I think from Kisumu, where I work and come from, we developed what we call the Kisumu County Youth Agribusiness Strategy. And in the task force, we were 15. We had at least 4 youths. In fact, the chair of the task force was the youth. And after doing public participation as part of the development of the strategy, last year when we did our review, before we onboarded youths into the strategy, for their strategy, Kisumu used to import over 90% of our vegetables. Molo, Nakuru, Busia, and the rest. But as we speak, over 60% of what we consume in Kisumu, especially the vegetables, and agree with Prof here, Ma'am, is that it is made locally. We're able to show the youth that yes, you can be involved in your own agribusiness, and we show them those notes that they can actually get money from. Now, interestingly, we did an analysis of the value chains that youth are likely to be absorbed. After we identified why they are not involved, we zeroed down to only 4 things. These are not involved because they lack the entrepreneurial skills. Those who have the entrepreneurial skills don't have the money. Those who have the money don't have the favorable economic environment. Government now has to come into policy. And the 4th issue is, of course, the youth organization. Who speaks for the youths when things are not working? And in Kisumu, they speak. They will say, you bring this finance bill, we are affected in this trade. Now that has changed a lot in our production system in Kisumu. They're producing and they're employed. So I agree with both of them. Bring the youth into the table. Let them articulate the agenda. Don't bring them at the far end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more there.
May I ask a question?
Okay. Okay. I had seen that one. I had not seen that one. Okay.
So I go?
1 minute, then I can go to the next. Yes, please.
Okay, there is a concept. I'm having a big team of interns in my office, and I'm having a problem where they think that I don't work smart, because sometimes I send them emails at crazy times, either 5 in the morning and all that. So I need to ask the panel, is this business of working smart that the youth are engraved in actually real? And if yes, at what point does it come? Does it come so early in their careers, or later on when you have some experience and networks to leverage? I'm having that problem.
Okay, there. And then I'll go to the youth.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen a youth now.
Thanks, Jackson from Tegemeo. And in front of me is an article by the World Bank, which was presented by the managing director, that there's a warning that there will be a crisis if no action is taken to create jobs for the Gen Zs. And maybe beyond agriculture, I would ask the panel, between the youth unemployment being an issue, a crisis, an emergency, where are we in that continuum? And are we responding in a way as a country that looks like we understand the impending crisis? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to give the last, to the youth and Mureithi. No, you are not youth. No, I'll give you. 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute. If we agree to that, then I'm okay. Yes.
Okay. My name is Vivian Mothoni, the National Green Specialist at Don Bosco. We usually operate in the TVET space. I have a question pertaining the change of ideas for the youth. we have a project at the moment called Seed for Africa. It's EU funded, where we're conducting hackathons, agricultural-based hackathons. The youth are doing agribusiness ideas, and then they'll compete. For now it's Kenya, but we're working with South Africa and Benin, competing with each other. So those kind of projects, I've noticed, have really got traction for our youth, despite us having trades from plumbing, carpentry, electrical connection and all that. But now I'm trying to, my question majorly is, how do we develop programs or projects that can make the youth be more interested per se? Because we can't keep copying this particular project we're using, but how can we make more programs and projects that are that entertaining, bearing in mind that change of ideas is something that's common?
Thank you. Felix?
Yes, mine is not a question, it's a comment. And in my operation, I've realized women and youth have similar characteristics. They go where money is. If you go to the most successful cooperatives in Kirinyaga, you see women going for elective posts. Even that you are saying they are not given opportunities. I would say this, there should be a policy change, especially from the government level, where we start packaging agriculture like a posh business. Until you keep talking about agriculture as secondary, without imagining it should be given the first priority, it will never be attractive to youth. Secondly, we have serious platforms which can do that campaign. In year 2017, when I was glad that this guy comes from Nairobi with informations, I started a Facebook page called Kirinyaga Coffee Farmers. If you go to that page, it has 89,000. That page has made people in my neighborhood, young youth, get in coffee planting like crazy. So it is an issue of packaging and showing our people from the government. Yes, let us tell our people and actually itemize the success stories in agriculture, and it will be attractive to the people. It is for the policy makers to go that level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last one, half a minute. Yeah, the other day I was actually with some youth, and they were saying, make agriculture sexy, and they'll come.
Indeed, we should make it sexy.
I don't know.
My name is Patrick. I work with the Center for African Bioentrepreneurship. And just to share some experience, because we are having a project which is dealing with the youth employment creation in agriculture and agribusiness. And we have 4 counties where we are working. That is Makueni on mango, Nyandarua for potato, Kakamega avocado, and West Pokot mango and potato. We are dealing with the youths-led MSMEs or SMEs. And there are 3 areas. One, youth would want mentorship. They want linkages to markets and also to finance. They want also to leverage on the technology. Youths also would want to formalize their businesses. We have found out many of them have not formalized their businesses, therefore they are not able to be recognized. Then the last one, basically youth would want policies where they are also involved in co-creation of research evidence and also uptake to inform policy making and decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have only 2 minutes. I give each half a minute each, and I'll start from that side, and we finish with Patrick. Half a minute, please.
I think I'll tackle the question that he asked, where we are, whether we are at a crisis. I will say yes, we are at a crisis. And if we do not take action very fast, then something will be done by the youth. And here I think what we may need to do as educators, now I'm going to talk from the perspective of being a university lecturer. We need to come out of our ivory tower and relook at the curricula that we are giving to our youth. And one thing that I've always advocated for and which I believe in is that we need to make these youth realize the opportunities that are there in each and every discipline that they are studying at the university. If one is taking soil science, what opportunities are there for the youth to be able to make money in soil science? If it is animal breeding, what opportunities are there? If it is medicine, what opportunities are there?
Thank you. We go to, yes, please.
Yeah, just to echo on the sentiments from Professor Mushega. Yeah, I think it's becoming a problem. It's not a new problem. We started writing about these things in 2011. The youth bulge, saying, it could be a curse, it could be a blessing. And some people were like, you guys think about it as a blessing, yet we are doing nothing about it. Now it's becoming a real curse. Then on smart, what was it again? This one, I think, to some extent, and now, working smart, I think we need to look at our curriculum. I think things have changed. We are having so many graduates who are coming out who can differentiate between micro and macroeconomics. They just study for their degrees and that's it. And again, they also want to get big money. And most of them are ending up doing whatever they are calling academic writing, which I think is cheating, on behalf of somebody else somewhere else. So anyway, that's what it is. We need to look at our curriculum. Professors, you need to do more than you are doing. Sometimes I examined for several universities in Southern Africa. And some dissertations that come to my table, I'm like, this one, yeah, maybe at 20%. But I can't just give more than that. This is just a complete fail. Because even the professor who was supposed to be supervising this student didn't even look at it. He just typos and everything. So we still need to do more as professors.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to keep it short, the youth are only interested, in my opinion, in what we would call quality of life. They don't care about the mechanics. They just want to know, how do I get what I want? And what they basically want is what's been said here, which is the income. They want the money. You will not interest anybody in agriculture amongst the youth if you can't show them where the dollar is. And that's the bottom line. And if we don't address that, we can talk as much as we want. But as one of my friends said, we have to make agriculture cool and call it agriculture, not agriculture.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Agriculture.
Thank you very much. I think the topic is so interesting. Surely it's a crisis, but I'm encouraging we strike a balance. You see, we can't leave the job. I am sure all of us are past 55, 50. We can't leave the job. But we have a crisis, so I think it's everybody to play their role. If the university change the curriculum, in the agriculture try to do something, the people in the development space, please, let's consider more programs related to the youth. I think this is a crisis for everybody. And we don't, if we all don't take a step, I think all will succumb. And I think it's about time that we take that step.
Thank you very much. And I think what the youth have also said is that they have spaces, including the agri-hackathons. I hope you can actually popularize it so that they know the areas in agri-hackathon that they can actually get in. I like the fact that he's also using social media, and I'm hoping that that can continue so that the message can come from the youth to the youth. Thank you very much. I think I'm standing between you and lunch and have finished. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think our chair deserves the 1 factorial, isn't it? So can we prepare and then just do one? Okay, let's go. Thank you, Chair, and the panelists. Now we want to go for lunch. I would request, so that we can finish a little bit earlier, can we do lunch very quickly in the time that is here, so that if we can start, if we can take exactly an hour. We are 10 minutes to 2, so can we be back here 10 minutes to 3, so that we start, and then just wind it up with that last group that we have. So we will try to condense it so that we can do it very quickly and have the closing ceremony. Otherwise, thank you very much. The little French, bon appetit, and let's be back here at 2.